Welcome to the best of the web's content in audio form, delivered straight into your ear holes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ask Reddit question submitted by Fred Likes Fire. People from Reddit who survived Corona. How has your daily life changed? What are the side effects after? Submitted by Edemus. Depends on your definition of surviving. My grandma that I've been caring for since I was 12 died from complications when she caught it from a visitor who refused to wear a mask. He was infected. I lost my second grandmother a month later. Her husband, my grandpa, died from a broken heart the following week. Now my aunt in Arizona caught it and is in ICU. My little cousin is showing symptoms and there is nothing I can do but watch them slowly get sicker and pray and hope and beg they don't die. Submitted by Dukesnarks. I'm a traveling ICU nurse who has worked in a corona unit since February/March. I didn't get covered until August. I'll describe my disease course. Feel free to skip to the after effects if you aren't interested. For the record, I'm 28. I run 5 miles 4 days a week around 6-6:30 minimum pace and weightlift 7 days a week. I'm also vegan. 150-200 g of protein a day. Since people will ask, I consider myself in extremely good shape. I thought COVID would just blow over me. Take that into account as you read. Disease course. One day I woke up and just felt off. I had a mild temp of 99.0 and so I kinda blew it off. The next day, the second I woke up, I knew. I went to the urgent care and was COVID positive. They thought I may have strep as well, but didn't bother testing me for it. Over the course of the next 16-ish days I thought I was dying. Oxygen saturation got down to 90%. My activity tolerance was 0, so that getting out of bed and walking to the toilet 25 feet had me on my hands and knees with my vision going red. My back and sides ached so bad that by day 3 I couldn't lay down and spend most of my days sitting, leaning over a desk on the tripod position. My fever was 102.9, and if I wasn't wearing multiple pieces of clothing I was shaking so bad my whole body hurt. I tried taking acetaminophen, but then I sweat so bad I drenched my clothes, my bed, everything I touched. It was impossible to stay dry, also resulting in full body shivering. I only attempted to take it twice. Even then my temp only fell to 101.F. I also had sinus headaches which kept me from moving my head or eyes too quickly from side to side, or attempting to prone myself as the blood would move towards my skull, making it unbearably painful. I felt so bad and made no recovery for about 14 days that I often thought of taking my life instead of slowly dying and being a burden to those around me. I also had mild hallucinations. A lot of them revolved around death and me dying. Lots of dark thoughts kept circling my mind. It was like a movie reel going 1,000 images per minute that I couldn't shut off or slow down. Around day 15 I actually started to recover, slowly. After effects. It's been about 2 months since I recovered now. I'm back to running and lifting, just as I was before. I get short of breath every now and then, but it's kinda random, never when I would expect, like when running. I would say I have 10% of my taste and smell back. I'm also back to working in the ICU. The biggest thing I'm trying to overcome still is the lethargy and malaise. On days I don't work I'm only awake for around 10 to 11 hours, then I'm out. I have to sleep 9 to 10 hours in order to even function. I've heard of people say COVID fog or COVID brain, and it's extremely real. I have trouble focusing. I can't remember something I said earlier in the day. Trying to recall something a few days ago is impossible. I forget what I ate for breakfast at dinner. My memory is just gone. It does not impede work. If it did I would not go back. Also, my sex drive is non-existent either, which wasn't ever an issue before. My memory, sex drive and lethargy has put a lot of strain on all the relationships around me. People have been somewhat understanding, but after 2 to 3 months of this they are obviously worn thin by it, and some have commented I can't blame COVID forever. I really don't know what to do or how to convey to them how much it hurts me, that I feel powerless to the after effects. I'm active, eat right and do everything I can to try and overcome/fully recover, but it's just not quick enough. Submitted by Lebanese. I caught it from a patron who visited the bar I worked at in March. He was laughing about coming back to the UK from Italy, which had the worst rate of infection at the time. I was really ill and couldn't really breathe for a long time and ended up with pneumonia and cracked ribs from coughing. No doctors wanted to see me and I couldn't get a test because it was so early on, so I had to manage by myself from home. I was exhausted all the time and worried that I wouldn't wake up because I was too tired to breathe by myself. I recovered after about 3 weeks and managed okay from then until it came back again in July. It was so much worse the second time. I have spoken to about 15 different doctors and they all say it's more likely to have been reactivation rather than catching it for a second time, but I ended up in hospital with oxygen saturation of 88%. I was unconscious in the ambulance and had to go to R&D but myself as my boyfriend wasn't allowed with me. It was incredibly scary. They let me go with some oxygen canisters and serious monitoring for the next 4 weeks. Since then I have stopped coughing, but the fatigue is unreal, and I'm experiencing what I would call COVID brain. I still have scarring on my lungs, and I'm not sure that I will ever be as well as I was before again. Occasionally my cough will come back, but most of the time now it's the not being able to work or move all that much. Everything is exhausting. All of this because someone decided they'd rather have a pint of beer than save lives. I nearly died at the hospital. He doesn't know me or the effect he's had on my life, but I hope a tiny part of him feels guilty. I'm desperately sad and angry. Submitted by R2Bly2. At the end of February my partner and I were sat in a hospital waiting room at a routine appointment. I was sat next to a woman who had the worst cough I've ever heard. We didn't think anything of it. At the start of March, before any talk of lockdown or social distancing, I finished my second day in a new role at work and had a sore throat. I don't really remember the next week apart from being in bed as the corona symptoms kicked in. I don't get ill usually. The cough was the worst I'd ever felt by a mile and the constant feeling of smoke in my lungs meant taking a full breath was impossible. The first half of the week was largely sleepless with fever dreams and shivering. My sense of taste and smell disappeared all of a sudden and everything tasted slightly bitter and nothing more. The second half of the week I could barely move from excruciating back pain and found it difficult to swallow from the sore throat. The cough slowly dissipated after a week, but the damage to my lungs will take a while to heal. I can still feel it a month later if I cough/sneeze. It was the worst week of my life. 5 days after I recovered the worst case scenario happened. My partner got a sore throat. This progressed into the same fever, shortness of breath and sleepless nights that I experienced apart from she had a constant sickness where no food or drink would stay down for more than a few seconds. Underlying conditions, autoimmune, meant this could easily get really bad. After a few days we called 111, UK non-emergency line, who asked us to monitor it. The next day the sickness and breathing seemed to get worse, so we called again, and an ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. Imagine putting your partner or a member of your family into the back of an ambulance to be taken into a lockdown hospital where visitors aren't allowed, not knowing if the last you'll see of them is when the paramedics close that ambulance door. Calling the ward they are on every day asking for an update from nurses that are so unbelievably busy, stressed and scared themselves that you feel bad for interrupting them. The coronavirus test result came back positive. After 10 days of constant sickness, and with a nurse stationed outside her door as they thought she only had hours to live, the sickness died down, and the smallest bit of liquid stayed down. We waited a week to hear some good news. We got lucky. I picked her up to carry on recovering at home after the retest for the virus came back negative. The stories she tells me from the coronavirus ward in the hospital are terrifying. An elderly couple being brought in together and getting rooms across the corridor so they could see each other. The man improved and was sent home without his wife who hadn't, and asked for a minute to stand at her window in case she doesn't come back. the patient in their final hours, that had a crying nurse holding their phone to their ear so they could whisper their final goodbyes to their loved ones. Hearing people's last cries and gasps before the virus made them drown from fluid in their lungs. The worry of the nurses who don't have correct PPE, or are being told to use a mask for a week, and then take it home to wash it. We have nothing but gratitude to all of the hospital workers who are risking their own lives to help us. They are heroes who are doing an impossible task in a dangerous, underfunded, and understaffed situation. We owe you everything. 6 months later, and we are both affected by fatigue. By 4 p.m. we are both wiped out. My partner still has the smoky feeling in her chest at night, which we are told is lung damage. It is currently thought that antibodies only last 3 months, so we are susceptible again, and are self-isolating at home permanently. I've not been to or out the house, apart from short dog walks, since the world changed. We haven't seen family or friends. We have both had similar symptoms, and been forced to tests each, both negative. When the coronavirus news started on the news, my household became a constant stream of antibacterial wiping. Each surface, handle, tap, chair arm, bathroom and implement, was wiped down at least a few times a day, and we were washing our hands until the skin was red and raw. We were careful. Overly careful. It still got us. When I see people ignoring the 2-meter distancing, when on their daily exercise, or kids meeting up in parks, I just want to shake them and shout, "What are you doing? You meeting your friend for a chat could kill them, or their family, or their other friends, or they could pass it on to a person they get a little bit too close to in a non-essential shopping trip." How many people have I inadvertently infected in the 5 days before I had any symptoms? My family, office colleagues, hotel and shop staff, the friend that popped in as they were passing, when dropping the dog off for daycare, the postman who needed you to sign a parcel. Any one of them could have caught it and died on a ventilator in a hospital or alone in their own home. Submitted by Planner Teresa. I got it at the end of July and had mild symptoms for 3 weeks. Lost my sense of smell, no appetite, lost weight and could barely walk in the beginning of it. I'm young and have no underlying health issues. As of now, I still get extremely fatigued. When I was nearing the end of my other symptoms, I couldn't stay awake at all, and my smell comes and goes also. I'm just now getting a negative test back, and it's almost October. So I was testing positive for 2 months, even when I started to feel better. Some inspo for anyone frightened and having anxiety over this virus. Both of my parents have compromised immune systems, cancer and lupus, and they overcame COVID too. So there is hope for anyone who gets it, but that isn't always the case. So please take it serious, guys. It isn't fun at all, and it did not feel like the flu symptoms to me. Lol, it wasn't anything I'd ever felt before. Submitted by N_SR_1. Personally, I had no effects apart from feeling shit for a few days. I was one of the first in my area to be isolated, as my dad was the second person in the county to have caught COVID whilst already in hospital. Over a period of 6 days from the day he tested positive, things got progressively worse, and sadly I lost my dad on the 6th day. In normal circumstances it is almost impossible to wrap your head around, but as we were isolated it was even stranger being stuck inside whilst trying to process. Whilst this was happening, my stepmother also caught COVID, as we had all been in contact with my dad the day he had tested positive. Between 4 of us left in the household, 2 had symptoms within 10 days, and 1 had absolutely no symptoms, and I had few for a short number of days. My stepmother has made a full recovery health-wise. Daily life has changed drastically over the past 6 months as we deal with my dad's passing whilst processing everything else that is happening in the world corona related. I think the most frustrating thing is the people that do no believe, and it takes everything I have to not react to the silly comments you see plastered on social media. Submitted by Celine_8107. I had it quite badly back in March. I was unable to get out of bed for 2 weeks solid. I lost 16 pounds in that time, could barely breathe in the second week. Turns out I had an autoimmune response, was very feverish, and exhausted all the time. I slept maybe 22 hours a day. I narrowly avoided a hospital admission, UK here. Since March it has taken a long time to get back to normal. It took about 4 months to get my fitness back, but for the first couple of months I struggled to climb the stairs without being breathless. I had strange aches and pains in my muscles. I also struggled with insomnia, nightmares and an urgent and frequent need to pee. Then at 12 weeks post-illness my hair started falling out badly. Woman here, not that it matters, but it really bothered me. Thankfully it has stopped and has started growing back. My mental health really suffered immediately afterwards. A doctor told me it was a mild trauma response. I found therapy and walking outside for an hour a day very helpful. Now 6 months on, I'm feeling like me again. I think I'm very lucky. Submitted by days_hello. I tested positive for COVID earlier this month. I almost never leave my house, and when I do I wear a face mask. It started as any other flu. On the 3rd day I lost my sense of smell completely. I couldn't even smell vinegar, nor have a physical reaction towards such a strong smell. I decided to take the test, and it ended up being positive. Since I live with my parents and my brother, I was super worried I might have spread the virus to them. Luckily, no one presented symptoms even though, before the test was positive, we were together for extended periods without using face masks. For about 10 days I felt as if I had gone out to a very heavy night of drinking and dancing until 6 AM, and as if somebody had beaten the shit out of me. I felt hungover, extremely tired, and everything hurt, especially my muscles and joints. Luckily I never had fever or respiratory problems. Now, I feel pretty much as if I never got it. My smell is returning slowly but surely, and that makes me very happy, since food is probably my favorite thing ever. Submitted by that girl is a lady. Cover changed the trajectory of my life. I feel so lost. My family lives in Florida, where the infection rate is incredibly high. I came down from New York to help my parents by doing the grocery shopping, etc., so they wouldn't need to leave home. It spread through my family like wildfire. First, my 28-year sister got it and ended up in the hospital for over a week on oxygen. She is now fully recovered. She works with the public, and though she wore a mask, Florida never mandated wearing masks in most businesses. Then, my sister-in-law got it. She then gave it to my 2-year-old niece. She tested positive, but never showed symptoms. 7-year niece, and my brother. My sister-in-law was hospitalized for about a week, and 3 months later, continues to have lung capacity issues and a persistent cough. My brother and nieces recovered without hospitalization. I caught it, possibly from caring for my nieces, while my brother and sister-in-law were in the hospital, although I was as careful as possible, but keeping a face shield/mask on a 2-year-old is impossible. I was incredibly ill for about a month. It was difficult to get out of bed, and there were days when the exertion from getting out of bed left me breathless for 30 minutes. I couldn't talk without losing my breath. My whole body ached. It felt like I had been hit by a car. I wasn't able to resume any kind of normal functioning for a month. Today my lung capacity isn't quite where it was before, but it has continued to increase over time. My aunt caught it. She died in the hospital 3 weeks ago. My mom caught it from the home healthcare nurse we hired to decrease her exposure, who decided to go to the beach with her family for a weekend, even though she promised us that she would stay in quarantine. My mom fought 4 weeks, struggling for every breath. She's on a ventilator now, on 100% oxygen. Her doctors met with us via a phone conference last week to inform us that we should start preparing for her death. We've decided to let her go in 3 days. She's 68 years old. I haven't been able to hug her in 6 months. I haven't heard her voice in a month. She's going to die alone in a hospital, without ever regaining consciousness, as her children grieve alone, in separate housing, just a few miles away. The sheriff in our county banned all masks in the police departments, and banned all officers from wearing them. Our schools don't follow basic safety measures. Most local businesses don't wear masks, even when preparing food, and don't require masks. My family continuously wore masks to protect our community, but we weren't shown the same human decency. I'm 24. My mom won't help me put on my wedding dress. She won't call me on my birthday. She'll never know her future grandchildren. I'll never be able to call her again for recipes, advice, or when I need comfort. I feel so lost. I told my boyfriend last night that I can't bear the thought of celebrating Thanksgiving or Christmas this year. We are planning on going to the family cabin for the next several months to grieve and hold each other. It feels like my mother was murdered by grown-ass adults who couldn't be bothered to wear a fucking mask. Submitted by Butter Janitor. I was one of the early adopters, but didn't put it together until the known symptoms list stabilized. I had very light symptoms, almost non-existent. Roommate got laid out. Up until a few months ago, taking a flight of stairs winded me. I originally thought it was because I got fat over winter. Now, not as much. Submitted by MLH Radio. Stamina seems to be cut in half. At least I stopped with the audible wheezing on every breath a couple months ago. But I've gone from being able to normally go out hiking 8 to 12 miles before March, to getting totally exhausted after 4 miles, less if there's even a hint of any elevation change. Just can't get enough oxygen in my lungs. Not the worst thing in the world, of course. So many other people have more serious long-lasting / permanent damage, but kinda sad to think this is going to be the new normal for me, and it's likely I won't be able to do as much physically as I used to, ever. Submitted by the _beans 1012. Well, for me, it was pretty bad. My whole family got hit. Before we got it, we sanitized hourly. Nothing went uncleaned, and we took vitamins every day. We stayed inside the house while my brother, my mom, and my dad worked. Everything was fine. We were all strong and healthy. When we got hit, it hit me and my brother first. I couldn't taste or smell some foods and it sucked. I got coughing fits and my mom decided that we should wear masks in the house, so we did. Everyone took time off from work. As my brother and I were quarantined in our rooms, we only got worse. I was having shorter breaths and worse coughing fits, then mom got sick, which led to my sisters getting sick. Mom, my brother, and I got it the worst. We were soon hospitalized after we could only breathe 1 second breaths. By the second week in the hospital, I lost a lot of muscle. I didn't want to eat food at all, and I felt like shit overall. I couldn't even say I love you over the phone to my family on the nights I thought I was going to die. During sickness, back home everyone was fine. They tested negative after a few weeks, but my mom, brother, and I were still in the hospital. I then went on oxygen, and it was easier to breathe. My nurse had me do some breathing exercises on the days I was feeling good. As a month went on, we broke the first barrier. They sat me up, and I tried walking for the first time in forever. It was hard. Like really hard, and after just standing up I had to stop. Another week went by, and I could take a few steps with help. We were getting better by the day, and I knew that I'd get out of the hospital. After 2 months I was the first to go back. I still stayed in bed, but I could sit up on my own. I tested negative. I was so happy. I did it. I beat COVID. Side effects after. A lot of things have changed. I can't run very far, and I have trouble walking long distances. I can't get enough air to my lungs, and it feels like there is a weird pain right in the middle of my lower chest area. I'm not on oxygen anymore, and neither is my mom and brother. We all tested negative, but we still sanitize hourly. I lost a lot of muscle during my time at the hospital, and I'm working to get it back. Still can't taste and smell some things. Overall, it was the scariest and hardest experience I have faced so far. I'm only 14. Thank you to the nurses and doctors who helped my family and I get healthy again. I don't know what would have happened if things were different.